It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show!
Hey everybody, it's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey gang.
Les Webster.
Hello all.
And Liz Newman.
Hello everybody.
So how are you guys doing?
Delightful.
Great.
Super duper.
Okay.
Pretty deep in here, ain't it?
Mm-hmm. Hope everybody out there is doing okay. So what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
Oh, well, gosh. Trying to read some comics anyway. I finished up that Corbin book, which is freaking awesome, of course. I was dabbling in one of the collections I picked up from Kickstarter not too long ago, which is it's called Corpus. It's kind of weird. It's the theme behind it is medical, so it's I can't say it's a horror book. I wish in a way it would be kind of fun if it was, but it's like a bunch of medical themed short anthology pieces. It's kind of cool. And then of course I buzzed through the free stuff I got for Halloween Comic Fest, most of which was awesome. I particularly liked the Spook House, not surprisingly.
But you just made Les happy.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's because he's been right the whole time. I mean, come on. Let's be real.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Gotta be sometime. Even a broken clock, you know.
Twice a day. Which is more often than I manage it, but anyway.
Sounds good.
Well, let's see. I trying to think from last week. I finished some of my comics that I picked up new ones. Die, Die, Die. It's on number 2 so far, and if you haven't read that one yet, it's a pretty good read. It's Gimple and Kirkman doing a book together. It's in color. It's not black and white, but it's kind of like a spy, deep government kind of story. And you know, it's one of those where you think you know what's going on, and then the last page they like completely blow it for you, and you're like, wrong. You don't know what's going on. So it's a pretty good story though. If you like that kind of thing, it is for mature readers. I will put it that way. There's a lot of blood and gore and violence. So if you don't like that kind of thing, you won't like this one. But
yeah. Let me know when Kirkman comes out with an all ages book. All right.
Well, actually, he did. He did like super
He
dinosaurs.
Shut up. He did not.
But I was kind of surprised on that one too, because they didn't eat people or nothing.
Well, man, what the hell's the point of dinosaurs if they're not going to eat people? Come on.
Right. But yeah, so that one, like I said, it's only on number 2 so far, and it's been really good. Usually when I pick that one up, it's on the top of my list. So, another good one that's going on right now, which I actually think I talked about it last week, was Stranger Things. So I won't go into too much on that. Just it's a good one. Definitely need to read it. If you liked the first season of Stranger Things, this one kind of goes behind the scenes. What was happening to Will while this was happening on Netflix. So that one's pretty good. And then I started The Lollipop Kids. And that one's, it's interesting. There's like monsters that live in Central Park. and these kids find out that they're the ones that are responsible to keep them in Central Park and protect the world. So that one's a cute read, good artwork. Story seems to flow real good. So if you haven't looked at that one yet, I think it's only put out one. So definitely one to keep after or look after. But other than that, yeah. I'm about to start the Batman Max series. It's kind of neat because that one's actually drawn like Max, if you guys have read that one.
Yeah, it's drawn by Sam Keith, the guy who drew the Max.
Yep. So it's all different style for sure, but I like it. So, and I think that one's only on 2. So good ones to jump into if you haven't got anything to read this week.
Woo!
Nice. Nice.
And I'm glad that you brought that up, Liz, about Die, 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 because I've heard so many negatives on it.
Oh, really?
Yes. But you've got to kind of consider the source, too.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Shade about to get thrown up in here.
And that's it. That's all the shade.
Well, like I said, it's total Kirkman style. So if you don't like his works, then I can't see people enjoying this too much. But I haven't read too much of his that I haven't cared for. And then Gimple, of course, he's the director of The Walking Dead. So it's kind of neat to see them do a story together. Well, yeah, not on TV, but in a book.
Yeah, gotta start somewhere.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, I had a double dose of movies this weekend. The tour for Mystery Science Theater 3000 hit our city, and I got to attend that on Friday night.
Cool.
That was fun. They had members of the cast there for this, the current cast mainly, for this tour. So it was fun to see how the newbies reach this cult following.
Now, isn't Felicia
I'm sorry?
Day part of the cast now?
I'm sorry, who?
Felicia Day?
She was not on this tour. I don't know if she is on the...
Yes, she is.
Is she?
Is she?
Yeah, she is Dr. Forster's daughter.
Kinga?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Because they mentioned Kinga in the play that they were doing, and it was... I'm sitting there going, well, I have no idea what you're talking about, but okay.
What you talking about, Willis?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's in the Forrester role.
Okay. But that would be fun. I could see that happening. The second movie I took in was the AGFA film. I was sitting here at home, and my wife walked in and said, "Are you going to AGFA tonight?" I said, "No, it's next week." Until I checked the listings. And I said, "Oop, I gotta go."
Aw, she was looking out for you.
She didn't offer to go with you or nothing?
No. I think she just wanted to watch her NCIS gibberish.
Right.
So
Basically, she was saying, "Why are you here?"
Right.
Yeah.
Are you?
This is my downtime.
Don't you have somewhere else to go?
well, they had a real treat for us last night. A 1987 film.
Oh, Lord.
Made from Topps Trading Card Company.
Ah, okay, that makes
I
sense
think
now.
I know where you're going with this.
It was the Garbage Pail Kids movie.
Yeah,
Oh,
boy.
wow.
You lucky duck.
And it was horrible. So it was well worth all the time I got to sit and watch.
Yeah, because
Uh,
I'm a part of. I think Les, aren't you part of the group too? There's a Facebook group. It's of the attendees and all that for the AGFA. And now all the postings for Garbage Pail Kids make sense because that's what y'all saw.
yes.
I kept seeing these posts. I was like, okay, there's something here that I'm missing, but I'm not sure I really want to know what I missed.
Mm-hmm.
That explains it.
Yeah. And it was fun. Had a good time. You look at that movie and you've got three main roles in it. One is the guy who did the voice of Winnie the Pooh,
Oh wow!
Disney.
Cummings.
One is Mackenzie Aston, Sean Aston's brother, son of John Aston and Patty Dew. And the third one, when he appeared on the screen, all I could see him doing was singing Candyman, Anthony Newley. And I thought, why did you lower yourself to this? But I know paycheck is a paycheck.
You
but
weren't
it's
thinking
fun.
about that with Jim Cummings?
Do what?
You weren't thinking about that with Jim Cummings?
Hmm.
The voice of Winnie the Pooh.
No. I was thinking he was going to look for the honey pot and all that stuff.
Okay.
That's what she said.
So said, what kind of movie was this again?
Wow. I can't believe you people. So early in the show. Here comes the dog pile. But it was fun. Had a good time. And to commemorate this, they handed out barf bags in case somebody threw up.
Sounds
Because
about right.
you did have the character that was throwing up.
That's hilarious. See, when I was in 5th grade, that was the thing to do. Buy all kinds of Garbage Pail Kids, and you covered your binders in them, and I didn't know they made a movie.
You were the target audience for that movie. It's a pity you didn't know about it until now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked Garbage Pail Kids better than Lisa Frank any day, you know. Oh, you guys are boys. Lisa Frank was like unicorn stickers and rainbows.
Wow.
Anyway. Well, cool. Glad you had fun.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
For me, it was pretty much catching up on comics. I actually picked up. It's actually been out for a bit, but I'm catching up on this kind of this stuff. First volume of Golden. It's a collection of Golden Age Wonder Woman comics, and so it's Sensational Comics and first couple issues of Wonder Woman, and it's some of this I have read through previous reprints and that kind of stuff. But it's kind of cool to go back and look at that art style and read those stories. Another thing that I spent a lot of the weekend kind of checking out, as I have mentioned several times in the past, I do a lot of watching on Twitch, and this past weekend they did there was a closed beta for a game that's going to be coming out here in a not too distant future. And I first heard about this game about a couple years ago when it's about a year or so ago when I first heard something about two other games I've mentioned on the show before, Dead by Daylight and Friday the 13th. And there's some similarities. This game's called Last Year, The Nightmare. And it's a asymmetrical game. It's 5v1. And the premise is you can either play one of 5 high school students that's trapped in this school that's in a hell dimension or something like that. I don't know really all the full of the backstory on this just yet. And I don't think it's all out there yet. But you have 2 geeks. You have the prom queen. You have the jock who's also the prom king, and then you have a guy who's kind of the average guy, but he's the tactician, the planner, that kind of thing. And their whole premise is to locate a couple of containers of gas to fill up a scissor lift to get up to the rafters, because that's where the exit is located. And they're trying to fight off a killer. Now, this will make Les happy because you can actually kill the killer. And the thing is he respawns. There's 3 different killers, but when they die, they can respawn as one of the other killers. But if the killer kills you off, you respawn as well. But you respawn into a locked closet, and the others have to come rescue you. So, which I think is a cool thing, because one of the things that's been kind of a drag I've noticed watching the other games is the game starts and you're playing, and all of a sudden you get killed 2-3 minutes into the game, and then that's it. You got to wait till or locate another game. And I'm like, that sucks. That doesn't happen here, and you can actually fight. You can actually fight the killer. You actually craft weapons to battle the killer, and like I said, you can kill him. It's about a 15-minute game. It's on a timer. So in that 15 minutes, you've got to locate the fuel, put it in the lift, and get it up, and then open and then run through the rafters to where the exit door is. And it's a fun game. It looks great, runs great. There's some issues because it's tied into Discord, so there's problems with people who were trying to play it, because you got the audio through the game and audio through Discord, so all of a sudden you're getting echoes, and there's some issues they got to deal with that in, and some. Of course, it's beta, but it looks like a fun game, and it looks like it could have. There's some I think there's some longevity with this, because it's definitely expandable, and of course that's what a lot of. That's what you got to think about if you're developing a game is where you can do DLCs and extend the life of it. But this definitely looks like this has got potential, and for the most part, it seemed like it was received rather well. So,
neat.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I'm sure there's videos on YouTube that if you want to check out some of the gameplay, if you didn't get a chance. But it's a fun game. It's kind of funny with some of the dialogue that's being said by the characters, but
again, it's a beta.
Right.
Dialogue can change.
Yeah, I think for the most part, I think it's ready. I mean, there's always going to be bugs and that kind of stuff, but I think it's ready to play. And as I said, the people I was watching seem to enjoy the game. So that's the major thing.
That's a plus, right?
That's the thing. That's the thing that's going to keep a game going. is if you enjoy the game enough that you can turn around and play it again and again and again and again.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, I am glad to hear that they are allowing the stalker to be killed. You and I discussed this before, that the people get online and there are always those that want to be the killer and that's all they want to play. Well, this gives you an option now, which I think is great.
Well, that's one of the drawbacks. Actually, that's one of the drawbacks, or at least that's what some people are saying, because everybody wants to play the killer, but the game itself chooses who the killer is going to be, which is fine. Because if you have 4 or 5 people who want to play the killer, it's not the same person all the time. Right. I mean, you don't have with Dead by Daylight. It's the person who's playing the killer who sets up the lobby for the other players to come in and play. So that's pretty much dictated. But with this game and how it's very similar to Friday the 13th. It was just it's like the game just chooses, except for in last year, there's a button where you can go, yeah, I wouldn't mind playing the killer, but I can play one of the students. So the game goes, okay, well, out of these 6 players, say 3 of them want to play killer. Okay, well, out of these 3 players, I'll pick this. Choose this player to play the killer.
Right, randomize it a little.
It's very randomized, yeah, which is fine.
Yep, give everybody a chance.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty, before we get into this week's topic, want to take a couple moments to thank our sponsors, The Things from Another World, for supporting the Fellowship of the Geeks. And we definitely want to make sure you are aware of this new sale that they're running. It started November 1st and goes through November 22nd. And here's the deal. Each week, the discount percentage gets lower and lower. It started with 40% off, and it's eventually going to end up to be 70% off. But there's a catch. There's a catch to this sale. What's that catch? Well, I'll tell you what. You go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, click on our sponsors page, and you can see all the information regarding this new sale, as well as the other sales that are being run. And while you're at it, you click on one of those links, or just click on the image that's at the bottom of the page, and that'll take you to Things from Another World, and knock yourself out. It's Christmas time. It's time to start thinking about that geek or geeks in your life that you need to buy Christmas gifts. So, really cool deals here. You ought to go check them out. And thank you, Things from Another World, for being a sponsor of the Fellowship. Okay. This week's topic. We are doing another, I guess you call it review and discussion. This time it's not a graphic novel or a trade, although it is been collected as a trade, and I know a new printing of this story arc is coming out in the first of next year. But I brought this up because some of this I think we're going to be seeing some version of here in another 4 months in the upcoming Captain Marvel movie. And the story arc I am talking about is the Kree Skrull War. Now, this took place in issues 89 through 97 of The Avengers. And this was early 70s. This is like 71. I obviously did not read this originally when it came out, but I got on it. I don't know. It's been a long time ago, but I remember picking up the issues and just being blown away by the story. Certainly the art, because this was you got Neil Adams art, and you have art from Sal and John Buscema. And this to me was, if it came out today, boy, it sure would be a big event. It would be promoted as a big event. And this was actually taking place in just one book in a course of 8 or 9 months. So, with that, I'm going to step back and I'm going to let someone else kind of give their thoughts and opinions of this story, and then I'll chime in. So, who'd like to go first?
Okay. To me, it was a fascinating story, but it friggin' went everywhere. It was all over the place. I still don't know what happened to some of the characters. And because of it, I felt like I was at a loss. At this time, Hawkeye was now Goliath,
Mm-hmm.
which floored me. When I read the Avengers, he was in his purple outfit, and when I first saw him as Goliath, I thought it was Pym, because that's who I recall. As far as the story goes, it gave me insight to a lot of different people. This was the budding romance of Vision and Scarlet Witch. This was the real solidification of Carol Danvers. I did have a problem with Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor coming in on the rest of the Avengers and saying, we're disbanding forever. Yet the next issue, they consider themselves the Avengers. I thought, you just told me that you were shutting down the organization, but you're going to stay on as Avengers. So, which is it?
Yeah, somebody screwed up a cliffhanger there.
If I'm wrong, let me know. But this is what I saw.
No, that's for me too.
The artwork was interesting. The late issues were mainly Neil Adams, and you could see his style very quickly. The earlier stuff was Buscema, and it was fun. It was all around. It was good artwork. They were guilty again of re-explaining the whole previous issue a couple of times.
A couple?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of my problems.
And I'm glad you saw it. I'm glad to hear that you had some trouble with it too, because I didn't want it rehashed. I talked with Thomas before, reading epic collections of some of the works, and in Marvel's Daredevil, every episode or every issue had the love triangle of Matt Murdock, Karen Page, and Foggy Nelson. And I thought, come on, folks, let's get past this. Somebody commit and just say, okay, this is how it's going to be. I did like the story, though. I thought it gave some insight to some of the characters, although the episode with Ant-Man going into the neurosystem of the Vision, to me, was nothing more than a filler issue.
Well, it gave you some insight of what the Vision was, right?
I didn't really need references for Fantastic Voyage in it.
Okay.
But I thought that was just a filler issue. It was almost like, we want to move forward, but let's do this and make Vision have problems, and then we'll have a resolution and move along. So
yeah, don't bring this story home for another month. Oh, okay. Well, we'll fill something in here. Somebody short-circuit the Vision.
So there I am. That's about what I look at.
Well, 3 cows short-circuited the Vision.
Right. Three cows.
And when that happened, I knew exactly who it was. Because I remember that from the Fantastic Four issue, where the cows were Skrulls that had been put under.
Yep, they've been conditioned. Yep. Which right there was a great nod to an open-ended ending. I mean, that's how that story ended, was with Reed conditioning them to, or hypnotizing them to transform themselves into cows and stay that way. And that was back in, what, 63? So you're talking 6, 7 years, 8 years later. That's first reference to, hey, this is what happened to them. Do y'all remember this? I thought that was kind of a cool thing.
Pretty hefty callback for a company that only been around for 10 years.
Yeah. Okay, Mikey.
Picking on me now, huh? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I thought overall it was pretty interesting. I agree with Les. I think that the scope was impressive. This took our local neighborhood heroes and put them on a scale they were not anywhere close to ready for, but they still managed to handle themselves fairly well. I also agree with Les in that it really almost seemed kind of directionless at times. Mm-hmm. I also have to say I was surprised. This was most certainly not the story I was expecting. When you start talking about the Kree-Skrull War, because that's pretty much what they called this thing, I expected a lot more war in this book, and I was a little bit surprised that there kind of wasn't any. This was stuff going on very much on the fringes of this intergalactic conflict, and this little backwater world with these very weird people essentially working really hard to not get caught in the crossfire. It's definitely an interesting way to approach the concept of such a large war. Mm-hmm. Not terribly surprising given the time period, I think. Right. It's a very reasonable reaction to a war in 1971 and 72. So there's that. But yes, and also the spending the first 2 pages of every book literally rehashing what happened in the last issue. Look, I get that it's a periodic publication, but holy crap, people. It was so ham-handed at times. I mean, pretty much all the time. It was just, oh gosh, it could have been handled a lot more smoothly, I thought. And believe me, I'm not sitting here knocking Roy Thomas. I think the guy is awesome, but I think he's written some really good stuff. But man, I mean, I honestly think he was probably forced to do that because I can't imagine I can't imagine why any writer would do that intentionally. It was just so ham-handed. Anyway, like I said, I had a real hard time. I struggled reading these issues because of that. That really was taking me. I mean, it sucks to get taken out of the story in the first 2 pages. That makes it really hard to get through an issue. But yeah, it just beyond that, yeah, it was all over the place, as I said. But I think it was all over the place, kind of in all the right ways. It was one of those deals where the story, I think a main theme of the story is that, man, we're just a very small fish in a very big pond.
Right.
And we can't even imagine how in over our heads we are in general, especially in this intergalactic mess that's going on out there. And we just happen to have one refugee sort of from that. And it's pretty wild. It was that I thought was pretty cool. That it didn't get tied up in a neat little bow at the very end, I think was part of the charm in a way. It was. I think it would have been really, really, really difficult to do that, and so I think it made more sense to leave some stuff open. I mean, hell, you want to have an issue 98, so you don't want to wrap everything up in issue 97. So.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, I also got confused by the Clint Barton thing. I was like, wait a minute, did I miss something here? But then again, I kind of I wasn't reading Avengers back then, so I kind of came at this. I read it basically for the first time in the last few weeks. So I was like, okay, clearly something happened that I don't know anything about, so I'm just going to let it go. But that you brought that up, Les, I was like, oh crap, okay, was that important somehow? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't recall why there was the change.
Funny that he quit also, and kind of in the middle, but anyway.
Well, he tends to do that, so that's okay. I agree with y'all were saying. It was a holy crap. They were aware of other alien races, but it's just not knowing the scope of this conflict between the Kree and the Skrulls, and then all of a sudden they're on their radar. The Earth is on their radar. It was kind of interesting. I mean, I guess I really got into this back in the day was because I've talked about before. Mar-Vell was one of my favorite characters, and him be with the Avengers. That kind of what drew me in. Where I kind of got confused a little bit. It seemed like there were some times where some of the characters just kind of showed up, and you're going, okay, what's going on here? How often are they coming in? And then the whole thing kind of at the end with Rick Jones and the Supreme Intelligence. I was going, okay, that's kind of an interesting idea. And it's something that really wasn't addressed again until it's like they've always wanted to try to power up Rick, and this would not be the last time they do this. They kind of it's like he's been kind of a sidekick for other heroes. Let's do something to where he actually kind of saves the universe or something. But it would be the last time they would turn around and try to give him powers or special abilities or something. So that was kind of interesting, but a little crazy too.
It's definitely seemed random. It didn't. It was one of those kind of way out there things, kind of left turns that the story took as it went along.
Right.
Mm.
When Rick Jones was in the negative zone,
Mm-hmm.
correct me, please, hopefully correct me. Did he not see Mr. Fantastic in there? Did he not state that he saw Reed Richards in the negative zone? Yet Reed Richards somehow got there, although a couple of issues before, the Fantastic Four was fighting the Avengers. And I'm not talking about the Skrull Fours. I'm talking about the Reed and Ben, Johnny were there. Yet all of a sudden, Reed is in the middle of the negative zone.
Well, they don't call him Mr. Fantastic for nothing.
Yeah, there.
True that.
I don't think that was the only kind of weird continuity glitch either. But 'cause there were a couple, so I wouldn't be at all surprised if that didn't line up quite the way it should, because I think there were a few other things like that didn't.
So I'm glad to hear you guys say that, because I thought maybe it's not that I'm not a big Marvel fan. I just don't read a lot of Marvel, so I'm kind of clueless on some of the characters. So to hear you guys say that, I'm glad, because I thought maybe I was missing part of the story because I didn't know a lot of these people, and you know.
Well, and we're all kind of reading this a little out of context too, because I mean, it's not like we're reading this along with the like 20 issues before and after also.
Right.
So it's kind of, we're kind of going at it, and it's not that organic the way we're doing it. So yeah.
Although I agree, the artwork was amazing.
Oh, totally.
I had to read most of this on my phone. So,
Yikes.
yeah. It's when I have my downtime. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I really did. I think I would have enjoyed it more, like I said, had I have known a little bit more about the characters, which I'm really working on learning more and reading more of Marvel. Like I said, it's not that I'm a Marvel snob or anything like that. I just haven't had a lot grab me from that side, you know. But reading the older issues like that, are we providing links for where we read it from for our listeners? If we do,
I suppose we could, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we got it. Was it off of archive.org or
the archives?
The Internet Archive?
Yeah.
But it was pretty
archive.org, yeah.
Because it's the actual comic book. So to see some of the ads and things that were in there too.
The ads were a hoot, yes.
Yeah.
The ads were a hoot.
So I think I got more nostalgic on that than the story, if that's sad. It is sad, but like I said, it was a good read. Definitely a good read. A lot of history, a lot of characters. So like I said, I know now. It definitely did the point of I want to read more after it and more before it too.
Right, just to try to find some context for some of the weirdness.
Right.
Totally.
And like Les said, wrap up some of what wasn't wrapped up in there.
Right, although given we waited 8 years for the cows thing, I mean, I don't know how much we'd have to read to catch up to the rest of that stuff.
Right. Well, I wonder if they have like a Cliff Notes version.
Wow, that is the epitome of lazy right there.
Well, you know, sometimes I know in DC books, I don't know if they do them in other things, but when something is mentioned and it's maybe been a while since it's been in print, they'll like put a little star beside it and say, read this issue or something like that, to where you can go and pick up on the hint.
Yeah, there were a couple of footnote things in here.
Was there?
Yeah, not very many, but
Okay.
a couple.
They loved saying last-ish.
Last-ish.
They did. When they loved spending at least 2 pages explaining what happened last-ish.
Yeah. I understand why comic books do that. I guess if you, especially, I hate to say the old times, but in the older books, they weren't there wasn't a lot of stores, so maybe you missed an issue or two, or ish. So, I can understand that. But like you said, it was kind of like, wow.
Right. It was just so awkward. I mean, it doesn't help that I was kind of stringing them together. I was reading 2 or 3 at a time, and
yeah,
I knew damn well what I had just set down, and so I didn't need it. But still, I understand that there was a month or sometimes more between issues. Still, it was still hard to read sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the characters themselves, I thought were. I don't want to say I don't know if I could say different from what I remember. Maybe it was just that there were so many characters that some of them kind of got faded into the background a little more. The one that stood out to me in that was Iron Man. I thought it was. I mean, other than a couple of off-the-wall comments about the Iron Man Tony Stark thing, I don't know. He didn't. It's almost as if he kind of didn't need to be there most of the time.
It also struck me as odd that these characters did not know each other's secret identities.
Yeah.
Unlike Justice League or something like that just kind of trot them out there and say, yeah, you may know me as so-and-so, but in this one they were just oblivious, because Iron Man would tell you that Tony Stark did this. And you go, okay, well, we know that Tony Stark doesn't the rest of the group know this?
Right. You don't tell me Captain America doesn't know that Tony Stark and Iron Man are the same person. How is that even possible?
Yeah.
And it just kind of didn't sound right for some reason. I don't know. It seemed weird to me. Maybe it's because it's so out in the open now, 40 years later or whatever. But yeah, it struck me as artificial.
Yeah, it does. It does seem a little weird, because I still encounter that sometimes reading some of the older material, even kind of the early '80s, which of course you're talking about another 10 years later. You read some of the books and he kind of does that, where he kind of talks about Tony in the third person, and he talks about his employer, and you're going, okay.
Well, and when he does it in the cinematic universe now, it's pure ego that's making him talk about himself in the third person. But
right,
yeah, it's not that with the earlier stuff, and it's kind of awkward.
Yeah. You mentioned that, and you think about the fact that a good portion of the Avengers' identities are pretty much already known. I mean, Thor doesn't have one, but you have Cap. Everybody pretty much knows who he is, and then of course, Fantastic Four, y'all know about them.
Well, they've always been pretty public.
So it's just funny how some of them were, and then you got him. I don't know. It just kind of, I hadn't thought about that until, but I don't know.
Yeah, and the whole Vision Scarlet Witch thing. That was interesting. I kind of wish and maybe they did, but I kind of wish they had gone more into that in a way, because it just seemed kind of out of nowhere all of a sudden. And I'm like, well, I would hope that they've spent like a year building that up to this point. But I wouldn't know that because, like I said, I've read the whole thing out of context. Haven't read the 10 issues previous to this. So, did they build that up? Did that start earlier?
Not that I recall, but it's been a while since I've read some.
I mean, they certainly ran with it after for quite some
Yeah.
time. I mean, God,
Right.
20 years they went on with that.
Oh yeah, I mean at one point they got married and had kids and all that, and then all that kind of went away, and
And now it's kind of back, but that's a different story.
Well, certainly back in the cinematic universe, but I don't recall at what point they started kind of doing that.
I mean, this might have been it, but
it could have been, but I don't know. I can't recall right now.
Yeah, it just seemed. I mean, like a lot of this whole storyline, it seemed kind of random and out of nowhere. But I mean, and it was surprising the other Avengers as they were figuring it out too. But I guess what I'm saying is, in that regard, it could have been written better. But I mean, ultimately, I think it's an interesting enough concept that, well, obviously they got plenty of mileage out of it too. But I think if this is the start, then it's certainly an interesting start.
So what was the general feeling? Is this a story you would recommend? Is this something that you would tell people to stay away from? Personally, I think that it was a good story. Go ahead and read this, because it may wake something up within you, something that you hadn't thought of before.
I would, for a couple reasons. Yeah, it's a good story and all that, and since there's supposed to be, I always push I always try to push stories if some of it influences other media, and especially with the Captain Marvel movie coming out here in April, and there's supposed to be some allusions to this whole conflict and all that. You know, there's going to be people who are not aware of this, or aware of it. I mean, they don't know anything about Skrulls right now because that's not been referenced. I mean, if you've been watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you're familiar. You're familiar to a degree with Kree. But if there's going to be references to an ongoing race, a war between these two races, then, you know, I hope there's going to be people who go, I would like to read more about this. And who knows, I think that's part of the reason why we're getting a new printing of this collection.
Oh, sure.
So here you go. And I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if they don't do a kind of a newer version of this story, to the degree that maybe they can shape things a little bit more that would be more fit into the cinematic universe, because they seem to like to do that.
I think what you're almost asking for here is a prequel to the Captain Marvel movie already, which I think that would be really cool.
Well, and they're going to do that. There is because they like doing preludes to their movies, and that one has been announced, but we don't know exactly what the content is going to be. But yeah, it could be that. I hadn't thought. Yeah, exactly.
It would make for an interesting prequel, especially if you play up the Carol Danvers aspect of the Kree Skrull War story.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it would be, in a way, her origin. I mean, I don't know how much of that they're going to get into in the movie in April. We'll see, but I don't know. Could be a way to do it.
I think they have to lean heavily on the background for this movie. Otherwise, people are just going to say, what I just watch. Even Wonder Woman had a lot of background for her movie, her first.
It did.
Yeah, and I agree. This is a story. It would be a good idea for people to read. I think the main con to it is, yeah, it's a little hard to follow at times. But I also think that the big pro is, I mean, this is a fantastic example, or sampling, I guess is a better word. This is a delightful sampling of that late 60s, early 70s art style. And it's pretty. It really is. I mean, is it the same type of art that we see today? No, it's not. And I think that in and of itself makes it kind of important from a historical standpoint. This is a really, really nice sampling of what comic art was back then. And I honestly almost, I like the story here. I probably enjoy the art more.
Me too.
Yeah, I'll jump in on that. Yes, I agree.
I mean, these guys.
It's pivotal as far as art goes. So to me, it's an important portion. Step up and read this one, because hopefully it's a good precursor for the new movie, and hopefully they are able to pull it off like they laid out in the comics itself.
Yep, the masters are at work here for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. Any final thoughts before we wrap things up? Other than check out the collection when it comes out in the first next year, or
very soon.
Yeah, very soon, definitely.
This was spanned 89 through 97.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
For those of you who want to read it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for those who can't wait for the new collection.
Right.
I will just say that Captain Marvel is one of my favorite characters too. When he set foot in the Marvel Universe, I was mesmerized. I thought this was good stuff. And this is a good follow-up for the initial run of Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm. And it had not dawned on me before, but back when I first read this, and of course I had read a lot of the other Captain Marvel books at the time and later, that it just kind of dawned on me that the parallels to the other Captain Marvel, the formerly Fawcett, now DC, and they're both called Captain Marvel, but a bolt of flash, one by saying the word Shazam and the other one by clanging his negabands, and they turn into adolescents, although Rick was older. I was like, okay, how come I never caught that before? I mean, y'all see what I'm getting at?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think they hit it. I think they hit it well.
So,
Yeah. They're trying not to piss each other off both ways.
right.
So yeah.
So,
I imagine it got talked about at like cons and stuff, but
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure there was some nod winks and all that kind of stuff.
right.
But, yeah.
And both these companies were passing creators back and forth all the time anyway. So
Right.
yeah, it definitely came up in conversation, but they kind of chose not to do anything about it, I guess. I guess they kept the stories different enough that they didn't really cross the streams much.
Right. Oh. Alrighty. On that note, I think we will take a quick break and be back with her weekly picks. And we're back. It's time for weekly picks, and leading off this week is Liz.
All right, for my first pick, you guys have heard me talk about it before, but this will be the last time because it's number 6, which is the last issue of Plastic Man. If you haven't read this story, this is my last beg, urge, plead with you to read this story.
She says that, but the trade will come out and she'll bring it up again.
Right, yeah.
I was thinking that myself.
So, maybe. But yeah, it's been a really good story though. And like I said, I'm excited to see how she's gonna wrap it up and end this thing out so far, and if there's really a cabal or if they're just yanking his chain but this last one he's supposed to fight another Plastic Man. That's what the preview says, but the only thing I can think of is the Stone Lady, which her name escapes my mind right now. So, should be pretty interesting. Like I said, issue 6, very last one. Definitely pick this one up.
Cool.
Yeah, it's been a fun read.
Mm-hmm. I like all the characters that he can turn into, and I mean, we even had a My Little Pony in one issue.
Yes.
They need to be careful with that. They might hit copyright issues. They don't publish that book.
Yep.
Yep, definitely a good read.
Alrighty. Mikey, you're next.
Alrighty. Well, my first pick is a Dark Horse book. And I have to say, I read the description on this and I was just like, I want it. Dark Horse is putting out an official adaptation of William Gibson's original screenplay for Alien 3. This is not the one that was made into the very mediocre movie. This is the one that got rejected somehow. And I want. It's that simple. It is being adapted by Johnny Christmas, who is very good at what he does. I want to know what William Gibson came up with for this story. I just want to know.
I'm enjoying this trend. I'm enjoying them going back and taking original scripts and adapting them and saying, hey, we could have had this. A couple of months back, we did the. Matter of fact, it was one of my picks. Was the original Rod Serling script to Planet of the Apes, and that was a very interesting read. I mean, some of it ran pretty close to the way the movie was, the original movie, but there was a lot of significant changes, and it would have been interesting to see that version. So I'm definitely curious to see this version of Alien 3. All right, I am up next, And for my first choice, I am looking at Valiant Entertainment. They are coming out with a hardcover deluxe edition of Faith. This is volume 1. This collects the first limited series, the regular series, issues 1 through 8, Harbinger of Faith, issue 0, and of course you gotta have to have A&A, The Adventures of Archer and Armstrong number 5. But there's also going to be 20 pages of rarely seen art and other extra goodies. If you've not picked up Faith, here's a good opportunity to get everything. Pretty much everything's been since they've kind of spun her off on her own, in hardcover for a reasonable price and great Christmas gift. It's going to be a great read. Be nice to go back and read some of that again.
Oh, totally.
Yes, sir.
Alrighty, Les.
All right. For my first choice, I picked Firefly number 1 from Boom Studios. This is a book written by Greg Pak and illustrated by Dan McDade. This is the story of Mal Reynolds, who begins to set up his system of transport. And this gives you how he met Zoe and the truth behind the War of the Unification. So you'll get to see him shortly after the war years and moving forward. This will be between the war and what you witnessed on the television series. So it's going to be to me it's going to be a fun arc to follow and see how they establish the character and how they make him grow to the way that we see him on the television show. I thought this was a fun program. It delved into a lot of different things, and hopefully this comic series will do the same.
Should be fun.
Should.
Yep. It's been a little while since we had some Firefly comics.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. Alrighty, Liz, you're up again.
All right. For my second pick, I'm going with one from Dark Horse, and it is God of War. Most of you guys know this as a Sony game. This game alone is probably why I've always upgraded my PlayStation and have remained a Sony fan. It looks like it'll take place actually after the video games, after he's already defeated the gods and the titans and everything else that this poor man has been through. So, it doesn't make any mention to his son, so I don't know if maybe he'll show up or it'll tell us why he's not there. But he was the last guy they introduced to us in the games. But this storyline, he starts a feud unintentionally trying to save someone from being killed by a bear. And apparently a cult wanted this person dead and probably sent the bear after him. So should be a good read. Like I said, if you're a fan of the games, definitely have to pick this one up and read. They've done a few before, and I don't know, never really quite hit the mark that the games did. So hopefully this one will. So Dark Horse, God of War.
Could be fun.
Could
Could be.
Hope, hope.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yep. Alrighty, Mikey.
All right. My next pick is from Titan Comics. And I'm picking Newbury and Hobbs, The Undying. This is number 3 of a 4-issue series. And I'm not sure. I don't think a whole lot of people are aware of this series, but it is very cool. Um, kind of steampunk, kind of Victorian era steampunk type story, with a couple of essentially investigator adventurer types. Um, Sir Maurice Newbury is he's kind of the front man, and then Veronica Hobbs is the knowing sidekick, and she's a very cool character, a very strong female character for something set in this time frame. But again, when you get into kind of the steampunk idea, and that whole thing levels things out a little bit. But so yeah, this is a very cool story. Like I said, this is issue 3. If you get it, if you can snag 1 and 2 while you're there, do it, because it's a very fun. There's some mystery. There's some interesting technology and some, dare I say, monster type stuff going on. So definitely worth checking out.
I agree. This is a good read, and I enjoy the prose at the end of the comic. Yeah, each issue will give you part of a story, and this is written by the author Charles Mann.
George.
Oh, thank you. And Mann has 5 books, I think, in the series right now, plus a short story book. So I'm intrigued enough to go see if I can find the books also, and try to get a little more background of these 2 characters.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Alrighty, I am up again. And for my second pick, it's another collection. This one's from Marvel. And it's another one of my epic collections. This is X-Men Sentinels Live. And this actually collects the last of the original X-Men's run before its cancellation, and then essentially reprints. And this is when Roy Thomas, which we talked about earlier in the show, took over the book, and Neil Adams took over doing the art. And we added the likes of Havoc and Polaris, and another team up with Kazar. This actually collects, it's 46 through 66, and material from Kazar number 2 and 3 and Marvel Tales number 30. As y'all know, I'm a big fan of epic collections, and here's another good chunk of good stories to read. So definitely pick that up.
Fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Good choice.
Yep.
Alrighty, and Les, so you're next.
All right. My second choice is based on a young lady who was an incredible actress, but she had done so many other things in her time. This is Hedy Lamarr. The book is Hedy Lamarr, An Incredible Life. It is a trade paperback, and in this they discuss the lovely Lamarr and how she coped with the likes of Judy Garland, Clark Gable, but she was also a unparalleled inventor. She was a fashion designer. She helped Howard Hughes redesign planes. She came up with a secret communication system that helped the Allies, and had a technology that would become what we know today as Wi-Fi. The woman was fearless in going after what she believed in, and this, I believe, is going to be an incredible coverage of exactly what she had accomplished. So try this one out, Hedy Lamarr, An Incredible Life, from Humanoids Publications.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, should be a very interesting read. Okay, and our honorable mention this week is...
Honorable mention is Fade Out from Image Comics. This is a book by Ed Brubaker, illustrated by Elizabeth Breitweiser. Hopefully you've read some of Brubaker's books, but these are fascinating stories. This one is about Hollywood in the early days of the Blacklist. So you have murder, and you have starlets, and so many different factors in this one. And this was a 12-issue series that Image had run prior. This collection now is coming out, and with the entirety. And I'm excited about this because I read several of the copies of Fade Out, and unfortunately it was one of those that fell to the wayside because the the store I was purchasing from did not continue it. They just hit the first 3 or 4 issues. Now I'll be able to finish it out and see what else I had missed through this one.
Yep. I remember this being a really, really cool series. This was kind of my intro to Brubaker and Company, and so yeah, it's good stuff.
Alrighty. Any special mentions or shout outs this week?
Not me.
No.
Nothing here.
Okay. We move on to our regular shout outs. First off, want to thank the guys at Manning the Martyr for supplying our theme music. Should definitely check them out. We'll have a link to their music on our show notes. Like I said, go check them out. Thank you very much, guys. Also want to thank the fine folks that make up Potter & Family on Twitter for spreading the word of the Fellowship. Definitely want to check them out. And the easiest way to do that is go to Twitter and do a search, hashtag Potter & Family as one word, and just scroll and see if you can find an episode that might catch your fancy, and check them out and support these fellow podcasters. Thank you guys for your support. And finally, you, dear listener, thank you for downloading and listening to today's episode. We do appreciate your support. We would love to hear from you. If you have a comment, suggestion, observation, complaint, question, whatever, please contact us. You can email us at email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, or you can go to the website and fill out the contact form that is on the About Us page. Feel free to follow us on social media, and you can contact us that way if you like. On Facebook, we are The Fellowship of the Geeks, and on Twitter, we are at Fellowship Geeks. If you like to follow our personal Twitter pages, feel free to do so. Mike can be found at Mikey Geek. Liz can be found at Newman_L. And I can be found at TomTC Geek. And wherever you download our episodes from, whether it's through iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, it would be greatly appreciated if you would rate us, and if you have a couple extra moments, a review would be awesome as well. Thank you very, very much. Did I miss anything?
No, I think you got it all.
Yeah.
Okay. Any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
Just thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening once again, everybody. It's greatly appreciated. And until next time, read more comics and support your local stores.
We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,